Conventional thinking is that the best way to equip an army is to either buy weapons or make them yourself, but the Taliban have found another way. Here's what you need to know. As the US has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, it has left behind vast amounts of equipment. Citing a US Government Accountability Office audit, the new Statesman reports that thousands of land vehicles, aircraft, helicopters, and weapons handed over to the Afghan army between 2003 and 2016 could now be in the hands of the Taliban. Those land vehicles include 22,174 Humvees, 42,604 light tactical vehicles, 8,998 medium tactical vehicles, and 189 armored cavalry assault vehicles. The weapons include 358,530 rifles, 64,363 machine guns, 12,692 shotguns, and 126,295 pistols. The aircraft include 23 A-29 Super Tucano Fighters, 10 AC-208 Eliminator Armed Caravan reconnaissance and ground attack aircraft, 23 Cessna-208 Caravan utility aircraft, and 3 Lockheed C-130 Hercules transport aircraft. Finally, there are also 32 Russian-made Mi-17 utility and attack helicopters, 33 UH-60 Black Hawk medium-lift utility helicopters, and 43 McDonnell Douglas MD 500 Defender light utility helicopters. It is unclear exactly how much of this equipment is now in the hands of the Taliban, but the New Statesman reports that the Taliban is now likely the only extremist group in the world in possession of an air force. What's more, this list does not account for equipment that was previously in use by the US military, which has also been left behind following its high-speed evacuation. General Frank McKenzie, commander of U.S. Central Command, told reporters on Monday the U.S. left behind around 70 mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, 27 Humvees, and 73 aircraft at Kabul airport, as well as the C-RAM missile defense system it used to repel an SK rocket attack in the final hours before its departure. The general said this equipment had been disabled. However, the U.S. does have a history of allowing military equipment to fall into the hands of its enemies. In 2019, for instance, CNN reported that weapons the U.S. had sold to Saudi Arabia had been sold on fighters linked to al-Qaeda, Salafi militias, and other groups fighting in Yemen. This is, of course, more than bad luck. Aside from arms accidentally gifted to terrorists by the U.S. military directly in cases like Afghanistan, the top 5 arms-producing companies in the world are all American, according to Statista data from 2019. And between 2016 and 2020, the U.S. made up 37% of total arms exports in the world, more than the next 3 largest exporters put together. Some of these weapons go towards U.S.-sanctioned fighting, like that in Israel, where President Joe Biden has been challenged from within the Democratic Party over the $3.8 billion of aid the U.S. sends to Israel every year. Almost all of that aid comes in the form of military assistance, and the U.S.'s annual grants represent around 20% of the overall Israeli defense budget, according to a 2020 report by the Congressional Research Service. Israel has used billions of dollars on gaining military superiority over its neighbors, for example, purchasing 50 F-35 fighter jets, which can be used for missile attacks, or last year purchasing 8 KC-46A Boeing aircraft. Of the $3.8 billion given to Israel in 2020, $500 million, or around 13%, was used for missile defense systems. These include the Iron Dome system, toward which the U.S. has contributed $1.6 billion since 2011, and $177.5 million on anti-tunnel capabilities. However, to date, the U.S. has provided Israel with $146 billion in military and missile defense funding, and its military spending commitments have steadily increased over the last 3 decades under the Clinton, Bush, and Obama administrations. Most recently, the U.S. has also agreed to sell weapons to Taiwan, with Bloomberg News reporting 3 weeks ago that the Biden administration had notified Congress of a proposal to sell $750 million worth of weapons to Taiwan, on top of numerous other approved sales from recent years. Included in the new sale are 40 self-propelled M109 artillery units, a number of other armored vehicles, machine guns, and almost 1,700 kits to convert standard artillery shells into smart weapons that can steer themselves toward targets. The U.S. State Department said the sale of self-propelled artillery vehicles known as howitzers would contribute to the modernization of Taiwan's howitzer fleet, strengthening its self-defense capabilities to meet current and future threats, When teamed with the 1,700 GPS kits for artillery shells, the mobile howitzers would be able to deploy quickly all over Taiwan and fire guided shells with high accuracy at incoming ships and invasion forces. The State Department said these weapons will enhance both Taiwan's military capabilities and its interoperability with the US and other allies. Deals like these are foreign policy decisions that the US stands by, and different people will have different opinions about the validity of those decisions. However, even the biggest weapons-selling enthusiasts will have to admit that, in general, whatever the realpolitik merits of individual deals, there is a correlation between selling and using more arms than anyone else, and those arms eventually finding their way into the hands of people you didn't want them to end up in. And that is something you probably have to weigh up when you get into the business of moving weapons around the world, either through your own conflicts or your exports. The Trump administration will seek to sell Taiwan at least 5 and possibly 7 advanced weapon systems, according to recent reports by Reuters and the New York Times. Here is what you need to know. Reuters reports the administration on Monday, October 12th and Tuesday, October 13th notified Congress of its intention to sell 5 weapon systems to Taiwan. The multi-billion-dollar deal would include the M142 HIMARS, High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, Slammer long-range air-to-ground missiles, external sensor pods for Taiwan's F-16s, MQ-9 drones, and Harpoon Block II anti-ship missiles. The M142 HIMARS, High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, is a multiple launch rocket system on a wheeled chassis. It fires the MLRS family of munition rockets and artillery missiles. The HIMARS can hit targets up to 300 kilometers or 190 miles away and would greatly expand the range of Taiwan's artillery. The Standoff Land Attack Missile Expanded Response, or SLAMR, is an air-launched cruise missile that can attack targets on land and sea at a range of 278 kilometers or 150 nautical miles. It could be fired from Taiwan's F-16s, which would also receive external sensor pods for the real-time transmission of imagery and data from the aircraft back to ground stations. The MQ-9B Sea Guardian drone is an unarmed maritime variant of the MQ-9 Reaper. The Sea Guardian can be used to help track and hunt surface ships and submarines. The Harpoon Block II is an over-the-horizon anti-ship missile that would serve as a coastal defense cruise missile. Though not included in the reported deal, Taiwan has also been seeking to buy the M109A6 Paladin, a self-propelled 155mm howitzer. The Trump administration reportedly also wants to sell sea mines to Taiwan. Under the Taiwan Relations Act passed by Congress in 1979, the U.S. is committed to providing self-defense weapons to the country. The news has outraged China, which covets Taiwan, and says it will one day take over by force if necessary. Germany, Finland, and Denmark have stopped arms sales to Saudi Arabia due to the assassination of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi and the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Yemen. The U.S., however, has not. According to a report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Saudi Arabia is America's #1 weapons buyer. The country accounts for 18% of total U.S. arms sales, which is equivalent to roughly $9 billion. According to CNN, the U.S. signed a $29.4 billion deal in 2011 for 84 new F-15SA fighter jets and the modernization of 70 current F-15s, including munitions, spare parts, training, maintenance, and logistics. In 2017, the U.S. military sold the kingdom a $750 million program focused on how to carry out airstrikes. They also authorized the sale of over $510 million in precision-guided munitions, according to the New York Times. In the same year, the U.S. brokered a $110 billion arms deal that should be fulfilled over the next 10 years. According to an official statement released by the U.S. State Department, Saudi Arabia is expected to purchase tanks, fighter jets, combat ships, and air and missile defense systems. Currently, there are around 100 American military personnel providing intelligence support for the coalition. However, fewer than 35 are reportedly based in Saudi Arabia. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, the U.S. has had an alliance with Saudi Arabia since 1933, and the Standard Oil Company of California, now known as Chevron, won a 60-year concession to explore eastern Saudi Arabia for oil.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the Tomo News family. Thanks for watching.